Hey, everybody. Back for another week of watching privacy. I'm not Tejas, though. I'm Brent. I'm filling in for Tejas. So if I mess up, you know, just try to blame Tejas some way. I don't know if that'll work or not. And we're glad to have Raju back with us this week. Raju, good to see you.
Good to see you, Brent.
And
I see a new cap there.
yeah, this is, every time I try to break out a special cap, Tejas is never around. I don't quite understand that. But yeah, this is
Del-
going back to the original Rams logo from the 30s and 40s and that. So I thought I'd break that out. Tejas will have to check it out on the replay. That's all right. That's good. But hey, let's welcome Andrew Bourne to the show. Andrew, thank you for joining us. Maybe give us a little bit of the personal background.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being part of the show. And a little bit of background: I'm Zoho's regional manager for Africa, and I've been in sales and marketing more than 15 years. And I'm a true Zoholic and a huge fan. And I help set up the South African office for Zoho. And currently, I'm located in Cape Town, South Africa.
So Raju, the show has gone international, so that's really cool, man.
Andrew has special interests on the privacy side. I thought so it'll be good to bring in and hear his perspective on maybe various stories we talk about.
Awesome, welcome.
Yeah, maybe just to add, I'm also the information officer for the South African entity. So the privacy law in South Africa is the POPI Act, and so I'm the person that overlooks all of that compliance.
It might be a good idea to talk about, at least at a very, very high level, on the POPI Act. I mean, there are not a lot of countries that push together privacy regulations. South Africa certainly is one of them. It might be a good idea to maybe talk about what South Africa has done.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to. I mean, I can give you a short rundown of what has happened. So the POPI Act was pretty much based on the first draft of GDPR, which is the European privacy laws, and it came into being, or came into law last year, July 1st of July. And we've yet to really see the regulator hand out some serious judgments. But at least the regulator is there now for people to report any data breaches or any infringements on the privacy law.
Well, you're far ahead of us, so you definitely have us beat. So that's good to know, and it'll be great to kind of have your perspective on some of these articles that we found pretty interesting this week. So why don't we jump into them? The first one. Now, I think this is ripped right from the website of the ACLU. In big win. Now, this is their words. And big win. Settlement ensures Clearview AI, our favorite company, right, Raju?
That's your favorite company, Brent.
I think we're building the anti-privacy hall of shame, and this may be one of the inaugural companies, but we'll see about that. But anyway, ACLU says, in a big win, settlement ensures Clearview AI complies with groundbreaking Illinois biometric privacy law. And let's get a little more detail into that. So I found this paragraph here. All right, so it says, under a legal settlement filed in court, Clearview AI, a secretive face surveillance company claiming to have captured more than 10 billion face prints from people's online photos across the globe, has agreed to a new set of restrictions that ensure the company is in alignment with the Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Act. Then it says the central provision of the settlement restricts Clearview from selling its face print database, not just in Illinois, but across the U.S. Among the provisions in the binding settlement, which will become final when they approve, Clearview is permanently banned nationwide from making its face print database available to most businesses and other private entities. Raju, what are your
The
initial thoughts of this?
if you look at the slide you put out,
Let's go this one.
yeah. So as part of the settlement, the company is now permanently banned nationwide from making its faceprint database available to most businesses and other private actors. Right? What does that most businesses mean? So obviously, it only needs to license it to a few parties. Certainly, it licenses to the government, but what are the other businesses it licenses to? Like, does it license to data brokers? Does it license to advertisers? So obviously, they form less than maybe 0.1% of those businesses. So yeah, sure, 99.9% of the businesses it cannot license, but those are not their prospects. There's not even you and I don't need Clearview's database, right? So so it's a war of words here, and or manipulation of the words in this case, and you have to look at it from both point of view. Interestingly, ACLU thinks it's a clear win for them.
Yeah. And Andrew, before you jump in, let me just pop up the quotes coming from Clearview's lawyers
And their press release.
in their press release. Yeah, they had dueling press releases. ACLU said it's a big deal, a win, a big win. But look at what Clearview's own lawyers say. We'll just say the bold print. Clearview will make no changes to its current business model. It will continue to expand its business offerings in compliance with applicable law, and it will pay a small amount of money to cover advertising and fees. That's one lawyer. And here's another one. The settlement does not require any material change in the company's business model or bar it from any conduct in which it engages at the present time. So, Andrew, just your first impressions of what you just heard, both from the ACLU and from Clearview.
Well, similar to what Raju said, I mean, not like most businesses, like they can still sell it to, data brokers and potentially to these big data aggregators that are going to collect all this information. And just there's so many different data points that are being collected around the world. And for facial recognition, this is crazy that they can even release that data.
Here's the thing about all these lawsuits. ACLU thinks it's a great win for them. Clearview thinks it's a great win for them. Both of them forget who they are protecting.
Right.
This law is for protecting the citizens. In this case, residents of the state. So there are two aspects to the privacy. One, collecting information. The other one is selling that information. All they're talking about is agreement on selling that information. It never touches on taking permission of the users whose information is being collected. And there is nothing related to that. And there's nothing. So in other words, it continues the abuse of users' data and lacking their permission or consent to collect that information, their biometric information, I must add, is still missing. So users still lose, citizens, people still lose. They made some basic press release level statements and maybe some money exchange hands if it did, but that's about it. End of the day, it's not about protecting users. So that is a sad state. And most of these lawsuits end up this way anyway.
I'm going to take it a little bit further. I'm going to say Clearview was the clear winner in this. When they come out and blatantly say, we don't have to change a damn thing, basically. We're going to operate the way we've always operated. We're going to do what we've always done. What does that tell you? So I think the ACLU, they had a minor victory. One aspect has been taken off the table, but it doesn't sound to me like Clearview is sweating it at all. And it also feels to me like, as we kind of said over and over the course of the show, these companies are just collecting as much data as they can because they don't even know exactly what they're going to use it for eventually. So maybe the ACLU kind of shut one door, but there's probably like 100 other dope doors that are still open, and eventually you can imagine Clearview walking through them because there's a huge supply for what. Wait a minute. There's a huge demand for what they're supplying. So I feel like good for the ACL for tackling that, but it's not time to spike the football.
And at a broader level, note that this is taken up by the state.
Yeah.
This should not be handled at the state level. Protecting user information and privacy information should be centralized, just like South Africa is doing it at the country level, or Europe has done it at the EU level. And that it should be broadly taken and not be done at the state level. And they will always move towards the weakest link. In other words, Clearview will move its headquarters and operations to the state that is most privacy abuse friendly, just like it has moved its headquarters to a most friendly or privacy abuse friendly country. That's why Clearview doesn't operate in Europe, right? It only operates in US. And the same thing will happen when it comes to operations within the state, as long as the differences between the states do exist. It has to be applied. But then Clearview only focuses, at least for now, focuses on biometric on the facial recognition. But I would extend it and say the same law should apply for other forms of biometric. That includes voice. Today, if you look at it, the so-called voice assistants, be it Alexa or Siri or Google Assistant, all of them are, if not already, are moving towards recognizing the individual based on voice prints, right? So just like you have fingerprinting, which they are already doing, facial recognition, now they're getting into voice prints. And what happens to those biometric laws? Are there any laws? I don't remember explicitly signing anything and explicitly permitting them to use my voice for the audio recognition. And this lack of consent from the user is continuous across various mediums, including the pretty much biometric recognition. I think these have to be, instead of taking it at a company by company level, going after Facebook, going after Google, going after Clearview and various other ad companies out there who collect this information, they have to keep it generic and cover all forms of information collection, including biometric, which is important.
Andrew, how important or how prevalent is the whole biometrics and facial recognitions and data brokers around that kind of information? Is there a lot of that going on in South Africa? Is it a big story down there?
So there's definitely a lot of it happening in South Africa, and a lot of, like, there was a data breach in 2020, just before the POPI Act was instated, where a fraudster went and approached a credit bureau, and he supplied them with 24 million ID numbers, and the credit bureau literally just turned around and provided him with the email address, the phone number, the residential address, the work address, the employer, the designation of that person, 24 million people's personal information. Now, like Raju said, it's not only biometrics, it's now the collection of ID numbers, and personal and people's residential addresses. So it's far greater than we anticipate, although at least we anticipate it. But I say a person on the street might not anticipate how big this data collection is.
I'm already starting to feel depressed, and we're only one article into the show. I mean, good lord! All right, let's move on. See what we got next. All right. Oh, here's a good. This is gonna make me feel even better. All right, this is from Engadget. ICE now operates as a domestic surveillance agency, think tank says. And so let's see if we got an additional quote up here. All right. I don't know how easy it is to see that, but I'm just gonna read a little bit here. Although it's supposed to be restricted by surveillance rules at local, state, and federal levels, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, has built up a mass surveillance system that includes details on almost all U.S. residents, according to a report from a major think tank. Researchers from Georgetown Law Center on Privacy and Technology said ICE now operates as a domestic surveillance agency. And I think we have a little bit more information on here. By reaching into the digital records of state and local governments and buying databases with billions of data points from private companies, the data brokers again, ICE has created a surveillance infrastructure that enables it to pull detailed dossiers on nearly anyone, seemingly at any time. Raju, I'm just going to get out of your way and let it rip.
This basically, if you go to the next slide, it talks about what Andrew was talking about. It goes beyond it, right? Where they are collecting the information. The Department of Motor Vehicle, the DMV, and along with call records, child welfare records, phone location data, healthcare record data, social media posts, and the driver's license. And guess what they're doing with the driver's license? Maybe there is a next slide there where they're using the driver's license and using the photo in the driver's license and doing a facial recognition of that. Guess
and
who
look
they're
what company's
using?
in there. Good old Clearview.
So obviously that is not part of the exceptions that they won, right? So they already sold that information. If you look at in this case, it's a government doing it. The thing is, and the reality is, one, it's not surprising. Two, governments have a default monopoly on privacy abuse. Just like they have a default monopoly on taxes, rules, and whatnot. Government has a default monopoly on privacy abuse, and that's what we are seeing. Now, they have to be held responsible, but no one is paying attention to this. If you go to the next slide, I think that's what I talk about, where who is really paying attention. Is able to sidestep congressional oversight and bypass attempts. So now the privacy and all of that is running amok, and nobody is basically working towards protecting the citizens' information, and that is a sad story. And one of the points you showed there, Brent, is important, where it's not just collecting the information. They're a government agency, but government agency collecting information from private companies, which is really, really scary. In other words, private companies, I'm sure, like in this case, Clearview is a clear example, but I'm sure there are other private companies that are selling information. And they are collecting information on your driving records, probably based on your car license plate number. And it is, I don't know if it is a private company or public company managing it, but they're clearly sending that information and they're correlating it. They have built that operating system for surveillance here. And that's what they're trying to do it. Now, where it runs into some challenges and for US citizens, that might be fine because they're getting all the information from, say, US companies. What happens when these agencies get information from everyone globally from other countries? That is where other governments are going to have a problem. Let's say, Google serves or Clearview and all these companies, let's say they serve South Africa, and the local governments have information about South African citizens. Is the South African government going to be fine with it? Is China going to be fine with it? Russia, or India or Europe? And that is where you run into problems where these private companies do collect information globally because they operate globally. Now, once you realize that the local government, in this case the US government, starts buying that information from the private companies who has information about all pretty much everyone globally. Now, what do they do with that data? Is that going to sit well with various governments out there whose partial responsibility is to protect their citizens' privacy? and they each government won the monopoly on their own citizens' privacy, right? So when some other government has it, then it's not going to sit well with them. This is where I believe the walls are going to raise between the countries, and that is the reason they will mandate that their citizen information be located within the country, so that they get to keep that information. That is the direction we are heading, but it is a result of things like these, where private companies who collected information about the global citizens trying to sell it to some of the governments, and because of this abuse, other governments are not going to tolerate that, and they're going to put up walls. The ripple effect, two or three orders down the lane, has to be taken into consideration. Obviously, nobody is operating with a long-term view. Everyone is short-sighted. I'll stop there.
What do you think, Andrew?
Well, I think also the less educated citizen doesn't fully understand how, this one company, yes, they might have your ID number, but there are other unique identifiers that tie all your data to you. It's your email address. It'll be your car registration number. It'll be your voice. It'll be your face. So they don't fully understand, first of all, how much data an organization can get of them and link it to them, and secondly, how these artificial intelligence and machine learning engines can learn more about them than they actually know themselves, especially if there's the likes of mental health information that's also getting put out there and collated, and there'd be psychiatric projects run to see what sort of things influence people's I suppose their conscious and subconscious. So it's something that I think we understand, but there's a lot of citizens out there that don't understand how bad it can get.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my rant short this time. I think the biggest challenge to having a national data privacy law is we have, national federal agencies going to these same brokers and buying the data. They're addicted to the data from these brokers. And so last week we did a story and it talked about the CDC buying data from data brokers. Now we have ICE buying data from data brokers. Why do we think that these any kind of federal agencies are going to put in place real stringent customer data policies where they're the ones buying it, just like companies, public and private companies are? I find it very hard to believe that these federal agencies who are buying it just like anybody else is going to change regulations and create rules that really protect us at this point.
Yeah, I think the data brokers' intention is to make money, and they'll sell your data to anyone and everyone. And if you have, it could be coming in from various countries. Doesn't matter whether maybe Russia wants to buy, China wants to buy. They may not buy directly, but indirectly or whatnot. It really doesn't matter. So, the data brokers will sell it to everyone and anyone. The way, I actually call these data brokers as, I want to trigger a term, PAAS, PAAS, which is privacy abuse as a service. And that's essentially what they're doing. These are companies who are in the business of abusing user privacy and making money off of it. And they are doing a damn good job at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah. It seems like while we have very negative opinions of what Clearview is doing, the government is kind of eating it up. So it's kind of hard to believe there's going to be any real significant, stringent penalties put down on them.
Because they're going to be, they're also one of the consumers. Remember, the parties
Exactly.
use this information significantly to, to do their campaigns for the next election. So they are the users of the data, and they're beneficiaries of them. It is their interest not to, add too many restrictions that will make them spend more money on getting voted.
Yeah, okay. This story didn't make me feel any better, so we better move on. All right. Next one up. This is a different story. Really interesting. And I think, Raju, you're the one that kind of spotted this one. So, everybody knows the unfortunate situation going on in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. Well, apparently, in the midst of this war that's going on, there's Russian looters who actually, were in Ukraine and stole a bunch of John Deere tractors, and these tractors can be used pretty significantly in a number of ways, particularly in today's current events. But the interesting thing is, actually, these tractors were locked down. They were shut down, electronically. Let's see, do we have a quote here for this? All right. And this is a Medium article, but it's actually based on a CNN report. Russian looters collaborating with the Russian military stole 27 pieces of John Deere farm equipment from a dealership in Mariupol, Ukraine, collectively valued at $5 million. The equipment was shipped in Chechnya, but it will arrive with these thieves. Let's see, but it will avail. Wow, I don't even speak like this, but will avail the thieves not. Boy, that's a weird, awkward kind of sentence. The equipment was anyway. John Deere was able to basically shut down these 27 tractors for being used by these folks from a key switch, an electronic key switch. They were able to flip from a whole other side of the country or the world. So, Raju, give us, what's the big takeaway and the big piece for this one?
For me, this is not the main story. The main story really is the thing that came out along with it, where John Deere was using the information that they're collecting from the farmers on their usage, their location data, and all of that, and selling that information to others, maybe the data brokers of the industry and whatnot, and who would maybe do whatever price bidding or whatever it may be. To me, that was the interesting part. So John Deere sells tractors and they sell service, and on top of it, they are monitoring the data of the farmers, using that data, collecting all that data without the farmer's permission, and selling that data. Where have we heard this before? Right? We say this is the case in pretty much in the TV industry. We have seen it, right? Where your smart TV is collecting information about the shows you're watching and whatnot, and selling that information to advertisers. We have seen that with online website providers out there. So we have seen location data and whatnot. So the concept of collecting data without users' permission and selling that data elsewhere to make extra money, on top of, in this case, hundreds of thousands of worth of equipment that you already sold to a customer, in this case a farmer. That is to me, that is the key story that I actually did not think was happening, being naive, but it certainly was surprising. Kill switch, yes. I mean, I'm not a fan of these kill switches, because it is going to be a slippery slope. In this case, we can say, when a farmer purchases an equipment, in this case, hundreds of thousands of dollars, they expect to own that equipment and not expect someone else to kill it remotely. If you're leasing it, that's probably a different thing. But if you bought it and you took loan and you've been paying loan every month for maybe tens of years, then that's an issue. And it can also be applied in a different case. I mean, we can say, in this case, there's a war going on, and it is okay for, say, US company to kill some of the tractors because they are now with Russia. This becomes a slippery slope in my view. Imagine, take a different scenario. If you take all US ports, all the equipment there to move heavy containers, massive cranes, and all of that, they are from China. These are Chinese equipment, and China has complete control of the software. Can China use that kill switch and pretty much make all the US ports inoperable? Possible. Can the Germans or the Japanese make all your vehicles, cars, and whatnot inoperable? Possible. Can a Samsung or others make all your TVs inoperable? Once you go down that path, it becomes a slippery slope. So I'm not a fan of the kill switch. And when somebody purchases it, they own it. And there are two aspects here: one, purchasing the product, and then purchasing a service. You can disconnect the service, but you cannot make the product you purchase inoperable. So, but the key point is collecting that information and selling is one part. And then I'm not a fan of the kill switch either.
I'm just reading this one line here, and it says John Deere is free to shut down its machines whenever it pleases. So if you buy it, I guess you think you buy it, you think you have control over it. You really don't, or you're not alone. And that means not only could they shut it down, they could suck up all the data and like you said, use it any way they see fit. Yeah, this one article has a lot of angles and pieces to it. So, wow, Andrew, your thoughts?
Brent, if you can just bring up the article just one more time.
Sure.
So yeah, just to add to it, obviously that John Deere tractor on the right there is not the latest edition, and so I've seen some pictures of these incredible machines. And one thing that just really kind of hit me is that they've got these cameras that can sense the difference between a dog in the field and a bird in the field, and it will obviously then stop for a dog, but obviously it will be able to analyze through these cameras that if it's a bird, and if the bird then flies away, that the tractor or whatever the machinery is doesn't stop. And now, who owns that video feed? Who's collecting that video feed? And we could eventually just have a completely 3D, 4D world map very soon from all the the video feeds and the photographs, where in the T's and C's, the companies are able to aggregate all these images. And potentially just, people could probably have a street view. We'll soon have a house view. People will be able to go on and have a look into your house.
Well,
but
to a certain extent, we already have at least the outside of your house view with Google Earth. And I mean, you literally, I was over there at that site because I just like to go every now and again just to see. They got like updated pictures. I mean, they're like zoomed right into your front door. And yeah, I think we're already there to a certain extent, but it seems like we're going to keep going further and further and further with this.
It may not be publicly visible yet, but mouse over on your house, they'll tell you the income each person there is making and how their voice sounds like. That information is already there.
Yeah, and here's how the homeowner, this is how he sounds in the morning. That's terrible.
And that homeowner has 4 Alexas set up.
Oh my God. Moving on to another story that will probably not make me feel good. Well, actually, this one might. So I think we might have something that's a little bit more. All right, No, I was wrong. All right, from Wired Magazine. Thousands of popular websites see what you type before you hit submit. I remember, what was that Google, was it Google Waze or Wave or something like that?
Wave.
Where you were typing into the chat box, and unbeknownst to a lot of people, when they first started using this thing, their actual keystrokes before they hit the submit was actually viewable from the people that they were typing to. That's terrible. And it sounds like the same kind of technology was taking place here.
This has been happening for years now. And people don't know that this is happening. It's important to explain what's going on. When you visit a website, a lot of these website has this embedded code out there, for trackers out there. And what does that code do? That code basically gives the website owner, or whoever has that code embedded, the complete control or complete visibility into what you do on their website. The simple things like navigation, where you go, the sites you visit, the pages you do, we know that they're collecting it. At least most of us do. But what you may not know is, when you fill up a form and say choose not to submit it, that information also is being captured. In other words, all you need to do is maybe type something. And once you type it, then that information is already captured, whether you submit or not. They have that information if they choose to use it. Another thing you may not know, you may just be scrolling a website. Your scrolls are also captured. Or you may just be browsing the website with your mouse over, or just mouse, waving your mouse across the screen. The position of your mouse is also captured. So pretty much your activity on a website, whether you hit something, click something, submit something, doesn't matter. All of that can be captured, unfortunately. Now, what they can do is use all that information and recreate a video of your activity on their website, and it can send you a website. Think of it like a video recording of your website visit. They can recreate that entire activity, your activity on the website, the link that you did not click on, the form you did not submit, the keystrokes you put while you clicked on while you were on their website. Every single thing can be captured, or are being captured. A lot of people don't know about it. It's important to educate people on this, because that is the level of insanity a lot of companies do. But the thing is, it just doesn't end there, right? If you are on their website and you think only the website owner owns that information, you're wrong. Because it is not that website owner that provides this piece of code. It probably is coming in from a third party. And a lot of these are coming from third parties. And those third parties, especially the ones that try to make money off of that, to data brokers, selling that information to data brokers, that is when it gets really, really ugly. Where they have your website activity not from just one website, but let's say a series of tens of websites, and collect all that information, aggregate it, and pass it on. And that is where it gets really ugly. And that has been going on for years. Just that, and as Andrew said, the person on the street who is not into the technology industry is unaware that this is going on.
And I'd just like to add to, that. So, Raj, exactly what you said, and where I get more, like goose flesh or goosebumps, is that, they can literally, these data aggregators where they bring in all this data from everywhere, can literally have a view of your day. They'll know what movies you watched, what type of music you listened to. Did you, let's say, reach out to a therapist? So eventually they'll know, like, what music do you listen to when you're unhappy? What things incite certain emotions, right? With these voice activation technology, they might even be listening to what you're saying. Are you fighting with someone? All these different things, and eventually learn a lot more about you than you know about yourself. And that's
exactly,
that gets really scary.
And to that point, Andrew, in fact, this week we have also seen some news that particularly information about individuals visiting abortion clinics and all of that is being out, or some such thing. I've seen some headlines along those lines where, and that's not a good sign. Now, if you apply that concept to a context, that gives you how disturbing this entire thing is.
Yeah. I think it was SafeGraph. There's a company called SafeGraph. And then there's another, Placer AI, who are providing heat maps and things of that nature for people who are going into abortion clinics. And it's some very scary stuff that's taking place here. All right. Last article, and we'll spend the last couple of minutes. And this one has kind of hit our radar kind of like overnight. So DuckDuckGo is really high on privacy and it's doing a lot of interesting things with privacy. They have created a Chrome extension that now blocks Google Topics and FLEDGE, their new tracking and targeting methods. Now, I'm going to let Raju go to work on this one, but to kind of set the stage, I think Google announced, was it last year, that they're going to deprecate third-party cookies. First, they were supposed to go away this year. Then they moved it back to sometime in 2023, and then as kind of a replacement for third-party cookies, they started working on this thing they were calling Flock, federated. What is it? Federated local cohort, or I can't remember.
It doesn't matter. It's about surveillance. So whether you call it topics, whether you call it FLEDGE, Flock, it's all surveillance. You're giving a name to it.
Okay. So their initial replacement was this Flock thing, which they got a lot of pushback from retailers, both big and small, because getting rid of cookies and putting Flock in seemed to be putting Google in even more control of what was going on. That failed. And then they started going with this topics and FLEDGE as they coming out of their Google privacy sandbox or something like that. So that was what they're starting to look at as a replacement. And already DuckDuckGo is giving you the option of having all that stuff blocked. Raju, what is going on here? What is Google trying to do, and why are they getting pushed back every time they try to come out with something?
I mean, what I sense at a high level is, which is good, which is Google is making these attempts because Google is realizing that people care for privacy. And they don't have a good impression on Google. And they're now trying to be so-called privacy friendly by introducing new ways of tracking you without tracking you, at least so they say, or without the users knowing that they're tracking you. They're trying to come up with new ways of doing it. So you can tell I'm a Google cynic here when it comes to privacy. But what I really like about the hidden message here is the fact that Google is trying so hard tells me that the privacy message is resonating, and I'm very happy for that. And particularly I like Apple's stance and against privacy abuse, and Google also notices that messaging is sticking, and it is very evident, particularly when it comes to the adoption of their privacy centric messaging, which negatively impacted Facebook, where I think 80% of users or 90% of the users opted out of tracking. So users are sending a clear message out there. So which means Google has to change some of these, and they are trying to make attempts to at least be little privacy friendly or appear privacy friendly, because they make majority of the money that by abusing user privacy, or at least through ads and whatnot. So I think that's what Google is trying to do. Now I commend DuckDuckGo, who are one, whether it is Flock. I think they were one of the earlier ones who blocked Flock along with Brave. And I expect Brave also to come in and block topics or FLEDGE or any other things. Any privacy-centric browser should block various ways of hidden tracking. So I commend DuckDuckGo on going down this path, and not only doing it within their browser, which I assume they are doing, but also offering it as an extension to people who care about Google Chrome. Now, DuckDuckGo is able to do it partly because DuckDuckGo is just a wrapper on Chrome. So they probably developed it. So the fact that it's available on Chrome extension means it's also available on their own browser, which is just a wrapper. So, but I like the development that the privacy centric browsers and the tools are keeping the advertisers or ad platforms on their toes. That's a good sign.
Andrew?
Yeah, and I agree with Raju. I think when 80% of Apple iPhone users decided that they didn't want to be tracked, I think it sent a really strong message, and I think that they're moving in a good direction. I mean, Topics will rather analyze your browser history within your browser. It won't send your history out of the browser, which allows them to analyze it and then share it with third parties. So it's a move in the right direction. But I think what they've done with this DuckDuckGo extension is it's for people that just want to say no to tracking outright, which I believe there are a lot of people that do want that. They don't want any sort of tracking, any sort of anything that might potentially release any data about them. So I think it's a really good move from DuckDuckGo, and likewise, I liked it. I see the movement, but I can see also why they've all these sandboxes and projects and testing and 2023. They're drawing it out.
Yeah.
And
I was just going to say real quickly. I don't think any one company is going to be able to dictate what goes on, and I think Google is finding out the hard way that they already have a significant amount of control over this, but companies don't. I don't think they want any one individual company dictating and having the power to dictate what happens. And I think anything that they come up with that feels like it's just on their own and not as a group or as an organization, they're going to face significant pushback.
I think the challenge is Google certainly has a lot of, particularly with Chrome, a lot of leverage that being. So if you look at the Google search, which is the primary revenue generator through ads, what is the moat for Google search? The moat is it is the default search engine in the browsers. Be it Firefox or of course Chrome. So Google Chrome is a moat for Google search, but then Android is a moat for Google Chrome. Right, that's a default, default search engine or default browser in there, and same with some of the Windows desktop till because Edge was bad for a long time. Google certainly gained the market share. So Google's browser's presence on the operating system. So Android became the moat for this, and then Android also became a moat because of various other reasons. Android itself has moat, and then there are further downstream effects. Google really, created a big amount of moat for its businesses. So replacing Google Chrome isn't easy, just like replacing Android isn't easy. But that is why it is smart that you develop an extension that writes in there. Anyone who cares about privacy will basically install it, and hopefully that'll start to work. So from that point of view, that's a good move. And note that Google is being forced into developing some privacy-centric features themselves, and that is the reason they are trying with Topics and others. Because Apple introduced iOS privacy-centric features in iOS, Google is forced to introduce them in Android. I think I hear that next version of Android is going to get some of these, or at least I read some articles related to that, and that's a good move. What I'm really looking forward to is the next WWDC on the additional privacy features that Apple is about to introduce. I hope they have a lot in their sleeve, but I'm looking forward to those, because now the privacy is now starting to be really important, and it's going to be the winner really is going to be the consumer, not the governments, not the companies. Hopefully this time it is the real users that are the winners, and that happens when companies battle each other.
I'm just glad that we had a positive article to end on after all the gloom and doom that we had earlier on. But thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode. Thanks to Andrew for being a part of the show. Andrew, maybe you can come back at some point. I think it's great to have your perspective on these kind of discussions. So thanks again for joining us. And
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I got to do this before, I got to do the promotional stuff here. So we want to make sure that you know that we're on Twitter at Watching Privacy, and make sure it's watching, not watching. There's no G. Watching Privacy. So follow us there. And we also are on YouTube. We even got our own URL, not that crazy thing that we used to have. So that's a good thing. So you can subscribe to us over there as well. Thanks again. And we will see you next week. And I want to make sure I end the show the right way with the tune, excuse me. Thanks.